And good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. We are live.
And welcome to TeaFlix Tuesdays.
Exactly. Hope you're all well and in the pink of condition, whatever that means.
Yeah, I wonder where in the pink.
In the pink. We'll drink a drink to Lily the pink. Never mind. That's another story, another artist. Today we have the great pleasure to welcome in a moment or two Mark Schiff, who is a comedic genius with you won't need me to tell you this, actually. And he's got a book coming out on the 1st of November, which we're going to talk about.
And a wonderful podcast called You Don't Know Schiff.
You Don't Know Schiff. I love that.
Yep.
It's almost rude, but not quite.
Yep.
But, and he's also got some very interesting stuff on his own website, which you should go and look at. And he's on Facebook, of course. Aren't we all, darling? So I think without further ado,
let's ceremoniously part the digital red curtains as if there were any.
Right. Yeah.
And the crowd goes wild, and we welcome Mark Schiff. And
Good
there
morning,
he is.
Mark.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning, ladies.
Hi.
How are we doing?
We're doing good. How do I get my hair to look like you guys?
Well, I've got a wig on. Mine comes off. It's
Oh, really?
Hers is detached.
Yeah.
This
Well,
morning.
my teeth come out, so we've got something in common.
They're like the stars. They come out at night.
Exactly.
That was one of the first jokes I ever heard in 6th grade.
Oh, was it really? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I may have written it because I'm 92 years old, so I've been going a long time with the jokes. And, I still find I come up sometimes to Ruth and her husband, Martin, with old wisecracks my father used to say. And then they say, oh, I heard that on Comedy Central the other night. Or, the old gags seem to get recycled and recycled, don't they?
Absolutely. By the way, I have friends much older than you, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no need to brag around me. I'll tell you.
Okay.
My friend George Stanley's 96 and going like gangbusters.
Good lad.
Well, unless there's a Mrs. Stanley, maybe you can fix her up because she can still drive at night.
We got the second Mrs. Stanley. The first one was 63 years, and now he's got another one. So,
good for George and good for Mrs. Stanley.
Yeah, why not?
Guys can get married till they're 300. It's a little harder for women, I think. But
well, we do actually. You may know this, but the Viagra pill was actually invented by a female cardiologist to try and solve women's heart problems.
Really?
It's the opposite. Yes.
Well, I've been married a long time, and I use it so I don't roll out of bed at night.
But I'm bummed.
Yeah.
I love it.
I tell you what, Mark, I love the piece I saw this morning of the son going off and, the father and mother and getting him to step out of the car finally.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did that a couple of years ago. It's a funny piece, about
it's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. We try to make them laugh. That's my job.
Absolutely. Well, it's so important.
So how old were you when you first realized you had the gift of giving laughter to people?
Great question. I didn't know I had the gift, but I knew at 12 years old I wanted to be a comedian. My parents took me to see Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh.
And I'd never seen my parents laugh so hard in my life.
Yeah.
And I said, that's it. I want to become a comedian.
Great.
And when I was 18, I started doing it. And the way you do it, if anybody's interested, is you write some original jokes, memorize them, and go find places where they'll put you up.
Yeah.
That's it. It's never changed since then. And thank God this September, I go back on tour with Seinfeld. We have.
Wonderful. Yes. I'm going to ask you about that. How long have you worked with Seinfeld?
Well, we started together when I was first starting, and I had no act and I wasn't funny. Jerry was starting out too. And we met his friend. We became friends at the comic strip around 1977. And Jerry was actually working at a place called Bruenberger. He was a waiter, trying to earn a living and living in
weren't we all at one point?
Yeah, he was living in a studio apartment with another comedian named George Wallace.
Oh yeah.
And we've been friends ever since. So my first road gig was really with Jerry in Washington D.C.
Wow.
And
when you say you weren't funny, did you intrinsically know that, or it was because you were dying every night and the audience wasn't laughing, or is it a combination of? How do you know you're not funny?
I was not a natural.
Okay.
I wasn't. Some people get up on stage, or they got the knack. I wasn't a natural performer, and it took me about 5 years of bombing every single night. one night I got off stage at a place called the Triple Inn in New York, and the guy said to me, the owner says, "I want to talk to you." He goes, "Your material is awful, and you have no personality."
Oh, lovely.
But he still wanted to talk to you, so that's nice.
At least he was, and you know what I did? I went back the next night and did another show at the same place.
Oh, God.
Were you any better?
No, probably not. You know.
Do you know, I was.
Now that's funny.
I always think it's strange that if you go out, I think it was a George Carlin line. If you go out and you're really, really good, you kill. Oh, I killed. But if you go out and you're really, really bad, I died. You die.
Right. It's a very violent sort of, I killed, I destroyed them, I murdered them.
That's
I
right.
died.
Yeah, I slayed him.
You know, somebody said to Milton Berle when he was about 90 years old, they said, "Mr. Berle, are you afraid of dying?" He said, "No, I've died in Pennsylvania. I've died in Newark, New Jersey. I've died in Memphis, Tennessee." So I actually saw him one night, probably 70 years into his career, struggle on stage.
Wow. Him struggle?
Well,
Seriously?
he was opening for Frank Sinatra at the Forest Hills Tennis Stadium, and he went out. It's an outdoor place, so it's not great.
Yeah.
And it was still light out, and people were still coming in. And the opening act, whether it's music or comedy, a lot of times bites the bullet.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, you're the kind of the warm up, get the crowd seated, and they haven't got enough alcohol in them yet. So
yeah, so you're playing, and they're still coming in. They're trying to find their seats, tripping over other people.
Yep.
Right. Well, I remember when my stepbrother Paul took Wings on tour for the very first time. He was like, I can't do to other bands, to musicians, what was done to us as the Beatles, opening for people or playing 16 straight hours at the Bambi Kino in Hamburg. But he said, you know, there are seasoned performers that are variety acts, vaudeville acts, tour with circuses. They just love to perform. If they get a round of applause, it's a bonus or whatever. So he literally on that Wings first tour, do you remember he had a juggling act, a dog act?
Yes. Yeah.
Opening for a rock band. And the audience was so confused.
Yeah.
They didn't expect it, and they just got right into it. They loved it. And so it was great exposure for these opening acts.
It's great he was sensitive to it, because a lot of people,
absolutely, yeah. Sure.
I happen to know his guitar player, Brian.
Oh, Brian
he
Ray.
too. Oh,
Sure.
bless him.
I know him for 25 years, and what a sweetheart he is.
Yes, he is.
Terrific young man.
He's got some pretty nice cars, guitars, and a penchant for Palm Springs, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have, I'll tell you a story about it. You mentioned cars. I was on tour with Seinfeld, and about 7, 8 years. No, actually, this was about 9 years ago. We're in Indianapolis. He loves cars, Jerry. And we went into this place where they had these old cars from the 60s and 70s, beautiful cars. And I'm looking around with him, and he looks at me and goes, "Pick one out, I'll buy it for you."
Oh,
wow.
Oh, my God.
Anything you want, go ahead, I'll buy you one. And then he disappears, and I'm looking around, and I found this car, and I loved it. Yeah. But I said to him, "Jerry, I love that car more than anything, but I can't accept the gift." I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. It seemed so huge. So I spoke to a friend of mine. I told him, he said, "Don't ever do that. If somebody offers you something, take it, because they want you to have it. It makes them feel good." So he said, "If Jerry ever offers you a car again, take it." Yeah. I said, "What, are you kidding me? Who offers a car twice?" I mean, once is so. Sure enough, I'm driving with Jerry in this beautiful classic Mercedes. He knew I loved it. He said, "Hey, listen, I'm thinking of selling it. Do you want to buy it?" I said, "Yeah, I got the money." He goes, "I'll tell you what, I'll give it to you." I said, "Okay, I'll take it." Then he says, "One problem, the radio isn't working well. Do you want me to fix it and give it to you, or you want to take it like this?" I said, "Fix it." So I still have this car. I drove him in it about 2 weeks ago. He was so happy to see it, because it still makes him happy that I have it 7 years later. So somebody offers you a gift, take it, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
That's really
what a
sweet.
lovely story.
What a nice man he must be.
And, an extra reason why I'm so pleased to meet you is humor looms so large in my life. I'm 92, like I said. 93, I would have been 93, but my father was a bit shy. You can have that one if you haven't had it before. You probably have. But I think if you can laugh at things or even laugh at yourself, it just helps you to get through difficult times. When people say to me, "How are you?" I always say, "I'm splendid," even if I feel like 6 bags of hammered crap. Is it okay to say crap?
You can say shit if you want.
Oh,
It's
I feel
fine.
like shit. I always say I feel splendid, because sooner or later, if you say it often enough, you believe yourself.
That's right.
So I just
totally
love
agree.
dealing with funny people, humorous people.
I consider it actually a moral responsibility to bring happiness into the world.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. That's so. We are obviously you've been around with Jerry Seinfeld. Are you allowed to talk about the New Year's Day brunch that Dr. Simon Mills let me in on, or is that a secret society?
Absolutely. No. It's a great thing. It's one of my favorite things I ever did in my life. So there were a few comedians. Jerry was one of them. Paul Reiser, who I'm sure you know from Mad About You. He was been on TV for 30 years. Larry Miller, who's a great comedian. Another guy, Michael Hampton Caine. It's New York around 1978. We're all out of work comedians. We're just starting in the business. New Year's Eve, we're not working. We're hanging at the club. And we said, let's all have breakfast tomorrow morning, New Year's Day. We had breakfast. We had so much fun. We said, let's do this every New Year's for the rest of our lives. And we did it for 30 years.
Wow.
Every New Year's. One year, we flew to Paris to have lunch because Paul was doing a movie in England. And that's what we did. I called it the $3,000 lunch because I would have to fly in from LA.
Yeah.
Pay my airfare, pay my hotel. But it was the great. And then we walk over the Brooklyn Bridge. And when we got to the middle of the bridge, we said, our new year is starting right now.
Wow. And nobody, of course, back 30 years ago thought to film that every year for the world's best documentary.
No, nobody filmed it. And there was some paparazzi around shooting pictures as these guys got more and more famous and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's right. I just saw Paul Reiser on an episode of Somebody Feed Phil Rosenthal's food series on Food Network.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And since Phil's dad, Max, passed away last year, he used to bring him on for a bit. At the end of every one of these food shows, for wherever Phil was in the world, he would phone home and speak to Max, and Max would come up with some wonderfully sort of off-color groaner of a Jewish humor joke. And so he's kept it going. It's called A Joke for Max, and it's in his honor, and it's in every show. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Paul Reiser had a beautiful one. The other day, he said, so there's a guy out playing golf with his wife, gorgeous course. They're, out in the middle of nowhere, and he hits a ball, and it drops into the sort of the mud and the weeds right in front of this barn. And he's like, he says, I got to pick the damn thing up and lose a stroke and drive it around to the other side of the barn. And his wife said, well, you're a really, really good shot. We could open both ends of the barn and you could try and hit it straight through and just keep on playing. So he hits it straight through. He misses it, ricochets off a tractor. It goes up, it goes down or whatever. Hits the wife in the head, stone dead, killed, dead, right there. And so there's the funeral and there's the year of mourning and there's all that stuff. After he comes out of mourning, a friend of his invites him for, a round of golf. And coincidentally, of course, it's the same course. And they get to the same place and son of a gun if the same thing doesn't happen. And the guy says to him, not knowing the story, he says, oh my God, he says, you could just open both doors of the barn and try and hit it through. He says, are you kidding me? Last time I did that, I shot a 6. So that was a joke for Max. Told by Paul Reiser to Phil Rosenthal. And I love the fact that somebody like Max Rosenthal's memory is going to be lived on, and we all just laughed. And if it wasn't for Max, I wouldn't have heard that joke, right?
Yeah, I got a short one for you. So this guy's mother-in-law comes over to him. The guy's mother-in-law comes over and says, last year for my birthday, you gave me a cemetery plot. This year, you didn't give me anything. He goes, you didn't use what I gave you last year.
Oh, I love that.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I love that show, by the way. Phil Rosenthal. I just watched it the other night again. It's a great. I don't know how he eats all that stuff.
I don't know. He's as skinny as a rail. Did you see the one where he goes to I think it's Madrid? Good grief, he eats more food than anybody should in a week. And he's got legs like chopsticks. I'm like, how does he do it?
Yeah,
I'd love to meet him. I just think he's genius.
Have you seen Stanley Tucci's show?
Yes.
Oh, love it. Yeah.
Beautiful, right? Travels through Italy.
Yeah, it's called
Terrific.
Searching for Italy. Although by now I think he's probably ripping CNN off with all the production bills, because I think he's probably found it, and he's just not fessing up to it. You know,
He's in the boot.
he's in the boot and body. Yes.
Yeah, that's
No,
right, yeah.
that's another lovely food show. So speaking of meeting Jewish comedians in delis, what's your favorite New York deli and your favorite dish?
Well, it used to be the Carnegie Deli,
Oh, yeah.
which closed. I'll tell you a funny story. Only in New York you see this. I bought this sandwich many, many years ago, and they make these sandwiches. They're just gigantic. I ate half, and I come out and I take the other half in a doggy bag, and I'm leaving, and there's this poor homeless guy outside. He goes, "Can you give me some money for food?" So I said, "I'll tell you what. I'll give you half of this sandwich if you want it." And he goes, "What is it?" I said, "It's roast beef." He goes, "I don't like roast beef." Can you imagine this?
Well, similar kind of thing happened to you outside
right.
Vaughn's Pavilions in Hollywood.
That's right. I got out of my car. I was getting gas at one of those places that serves food, and went in to buy a hamburger because
It
I
was
was
a
just in my
croissant,
lunch
wasn't
hour. And yeah, croissant, I think ham and cheese or something. And I came outside, and similar to your friend, there was a guy, a very, poor looking, down at heel guy, said, can you spare a buck or something? I'm hungry. So I said, I haven't actually got any cash on me, but here, you can have my lunch. I've just bought this. He said, what is it? I said, ham and cheese. He said, oh, sod off. I'm a vegetarian.
Ah!
Only in Hollywood would that happen to you.
Yeah,
I had a guy ask me the other day, a homeless guy. He goes, "Do you have $30?" With inflation, this whole thing is really.
that's hysterical.
Lovely.
We're filming a music video for an artist we work with next week at a club Monday and Tuesday during the day from 9 to 6 at a nightclub in the Valley. So, they're not they're not open, they're not making any money. And I negotiated the deal with them a month ago. And then I said, well, send me the paperwork. And it came and it was double the price.
Wow.
And I said, well, good God, why? And the answer came out, well, everything's gone up. And I said, well, what? Putting the price of putting a key in a lock and going like that has doubled.
I know. I know.
Just, I don't need anything but the back door open. And the air conditioning on, and we're done. We're good.
I had this with the airlines. Forget about what it costs to fly now. It's insane. So I tried to do it with miles, going from LA to New York on my miles. And it used to be about 30,000 miles, right. 120,000 miles now.
Oh.
How did my miles go up?
Inflation.
Well, it's good to know that your miles are worth more, or is that less? I think that's 4 times less, isn't it?
God.
I used to have 7 flights available to me. Now I have like a flight and a half.
Oh my God. And that's just to Phoenix.
That's just right. One way.
Yeah.
In the back of the bus.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Crazy,
So
crazy.
can I ask you about your book that's coming out in November?
Yes, you can. November, it's called Why Not? ? Lessons on Comedy, Courage, and Chutzpah. And it's the way it happened was during my COVID vacation, the 2 years that we were off, I decided to stay, writing, creative. And I decided to write a book. And I wrote a book. I got an agent, and we got a publisher called Apollo Publishers in New York. Wonderful, wonderful publisher. They're big on memoir. And I really wrote this for my kids in a way, because they don't know a lot about my life. I don't know if you have the same thing with your kids. They don't like to sit down and hear about all that stuff. So I wrote it. There's a lot of stories about my time with my, famous friends, and also about my life and my parents. So I think people will identify, because it's a real life story.
Right.
And we're very proud of this book. It's 60 essays are in there, and it started by being printed in a paper called the Jewish Journal in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah,
I'm familiar. Sure.
And it has a lot of subscribers. So they were very kind to. Everybody's been very kind to me about this.
That's great. It comes out in November. Yes,
November 1st. It's coming out. I'm going next week to something called ALA, which is the American Library Association.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna meet with thousands of librarians.
Oh,
and
wow.
we're going to try to get them to purchase the book for the library.
Yes.
Very excited. And my publisher, I just love these people. They're so nice. I had a book come out years ago with Simon and Schuster, and it's such a big organization. I got lost there. Just got lost.
Yeah,
This is a little boutique place, and they're so kind. It's
Great.
Jerry Seinfeld did the foreword.
Oh,
I got Bill Maher on the cover, and all these people.
Oh, great.
And there's no politics. It's
You
just
you can't do. I mean, I think Bill Maher is very brave with some of his political statements, but certainly if I was in the public eye, I wouldn't do it, because you can't win. You can't change people's minds. That is why after our little chat the other day, I chose this purple for our banner, because if you add red and blue, you get purple, right?
That's right.
And nobody's, if somebody is married to their opinion, they're never going to change their mind, and nobody's wrong and nobody's right. And I just wish there were more forums to be able to sanely discuss our differences without people just shutting it down and walking away.
Absolutely.
That's what I think Bill Maher does. I mean, he had Kellyanne Conway on last week, which I thought was very brave. And she kept trying to interrupt him, and he ran his show, but he gave her the time of day to speak her opinion. And again, it's not necessarily something he agrees with, but that's what, freedom of speech and true democracy to me should be about. It's just listening.
Absolutely, say whatever. And, listen, as a comedian, I'm going to say things that some people aren't going to like. So are they supposed to go up on stage and punch me in the face? No, you don't like it, leave or listen to the next joke. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Well, we have another friend. You may know him as the voice of traffic on KNX 1070, Tom Tran. I'm Tom Tran, and I'm with your traffic in LA. And he is also an incredible stand-up comedian. He's the founder of something called GIs of Comedy. He was shot in the head in Iraq, and he has a Purple Heart and all of that stuff. And so he and his fellow GIs, who are funny, have formed this kind of Blue Man group of comedy, and they go out 3 at a time under the banner of the GIs of Comedy. And so he does, all of the venues that you would know, the Comedy Store and the Comedy and Magic Club and so on and so forth. And some of his gags lately have been like, boy, do you need to have a warning or a waiver or something on the front of the stage, like when you're being filmed, to say, you may hear something that offends you tonight. Please don't smack or shoot the comedian.
I hope not. I hate all those warnings. Like when you go into a restaurant, you have a good meal, and there's a picture of a guy choking on a poster right where you're eating.
Right.
You just
look
out.
Or you're in a jacuzzi in Palm Springs, and there's all the drowning information.
Yeah, I went to one the other day. It said, do not enter this jacuzzi if you have diarrhea. How many people?
I saw that too.
Oh, actually, you know what it said? It said severe diarrhea. It didn't even say
mild is okay.
Mild is okay in the jacuzzi, but severe, stay out. Go use the pool.
Oh, that's hilarious.
How
it's like if you've had Vindaloo and you're a little bit poopy, that's okay, but otherwise,
Every time I go to the gas station, there's a sign, pumping gas will probably give you cancer. Leave me alone, will you please? Let me just pump gas and get out of here.
Yeah.
I don't need
God.
Yeah. We many moons ago, we built the official John Cleese website from John Cleese of Monty Python, tall British man fame, who is,
of course,
the most British curmudgeonly person you'd ever want to meet, but has a heart of gold. And so he said to me, I said, well, we need a disclaimer in terms and conditions of use of the website. And he said, well, I'm not calling my bloody attorneys and my lawyers. They charge me $600 an hour. Why on earth would I want to do that? Why don't you just go ahead and write it for me? So what I did was I took every single disclaimer, must be taller than this line to ride. Contents may shift during shipping, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote like the single longest disclaimer paragraph for johncleese.com, and it got repeated all over the world and drove traffic to the website. But it was like, good God, anything else, objects may be closer than they appear in the mirror. Oh, good grief.
Right.
But we still have Nimrods who managed to go out hiking and kill themselves.
That's right. I have an article that's coming out soon. It's called Safety Last. And what it was about was when I was a kid growing up, there were no safety procedures.
Right.
Like, medicine bottles, it was open and gobble. That's the way it was. My toys would splinter off into little sharp things there.
Yeah.
I would chew on the Bic pen with the little stiletto sticking out.
Yeah. We're still here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What we didn't have, though, growing up that the kids don't have now is we had freedom.
Yes.
I could go anywhere. my parents would go, be home around 6 o'clock, and I was gone for the day.
Before it gets dark.
Yeah.
Before
And
it gets dark.
Try not to go over the handlebars of your bicycle.
Try not to crack your head into a wall at 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right. But, now little Tucker has to have a helmet and shin guards to walk to the corner to get a gluten-free oat milk ice cream.
That's, yeah.
You know, it's like, really?
Dear.
It's just.
I'm not quite sure how we all survived.
Yeah.
But we did.
Amazing.
Before gum guards and child bike helmets, how are there 7.5 billion of us on the planet?
I know no seatbelts in the car. I used to just, there was a section in the back of the car. Sometimes I'd climb onto this little ledge and just look out the back window. It was insane. But thank God we're all here. And
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All these devices at least have created employment for a lot of people, haven't they?
That's right. All these, and they keep coming up with new ones. I went to the bank today to take out $12,000 to gas up my car, and so I had to go into the safety deposit box, and I said to the guy, because I saw a lot of them were empty, and I said, "Aren't they selling these?" He goes, "No, we're not selling anymore because of liability." What liability? I'm in a safe here.
Oh my God!
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's just in case there's a fire, you might be trapped in here. It's insane what's going on.
I know, isn't it funny?
Should they maybe rename them to a liability deposit box?
Yeah.
Right? And then people could, put their bills that they don't intend to pay in there and just mark and paid and walk away.
Oh God, that reminds me, when my dad was alive, he died when I was 7, but as a kid I can see him standing in front of the fireplace, looking at the mail, opening it, seeing it was a bill, tearing it in half, throwing it in the fire and saying, "Well, thank God that's paid for another month."
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you lost your dad so early. That's not always easy.
I was only thinking yesterday, I never ever saw him angry. All of my recollections of him are being funny, making us laugh.
Which is why you're
Isn't
mentally
that
sick.
Probably.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
No discipline, just jokes.
Yeah.
My father had a good sense of humor too. He passed at 59. Probably some of the greatest memories. There was one, I did Radio City Music Hall in New York. Wow. And I was opening for Kenny Loggins.
Oh yeah.
And it was actually, I'll tell you very quickly why it was a great night. When you do these jobs, a lot of times they get the local radio person to introduce you on stage.
Yep. Yes.
And we have one on here who did just that, Steve Goddard from Scottsdale, Arizona. Funny you should say.
You got a good one there. But this guy starts talking into the mic, introducing me, and the mic goes dead. No sound. It's dead. And I'm waving to him and go, "I'm not coming out. I'm not coming out." I don't come out. It took him 15 minutes to fix the mic. And by the time I got out there, 6,000 people were seated and staring straight ahead. So I had a great audience. I got a standing ovation at Radio City Music Hall. My parents got a chance to see this.
Wow.
And it was such a beautiful event. And I was so happy. Your parents, when you succeed at something, nobody's more happy for you than you.
Oh, absolutely. I know.
Of course. Well,
my father never made more than a couple $100 a week. He drove a truck in New York. And one time he came to see me and he said, "How much money are you making for tonight?" I told him $5,000, and he had to sit down.
Yeah.
He couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But he was so happy to hear it.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Bobby's asking, did you know Jackie Mason? Did you ever get to meet him or?
Yes.
Yes.
I know Jackie Mason very well. And we had a night with him one night. My wife and I went to see him the show. And then after, I said, "Jackie," he said, "Hey, if you got any time, you want to go out and get something to eat." So we went to this place called Schiff's. It was a diner on La Cienega Boulevard.
Yes, I know.
And what's special about this place is every table had a toaster. And you made your own toast. Because they were so sick of people complaining. It was too light.
Yeah.
So when Jackie Mason saw he had to make his own toast, he lost his mind. He looks at me and goes, "I can't believe it. I come to a restaurant. I'm supposed to do the cooking. They don't come to my house to do the..." And he went from table to table asking people if they enjoyed making their own toast in the restaurant.
Oh, how great.
Yeah.
But I invited him for a Jewish holiday. There's a holiday called Rosh Hashanah, which is the New Year. and my wife and I invited him for dinner, and he refused to come because he said, I never go to people's homes because I won't go anywhere that I can't leave if I want to.
Oh, interesting.
And he didn't like to feel obligated to stay longer. So that's why he loved restaurants. He could just walk out
Get up
anytime
and go. Yeah. Wow.
My favorite line of his, I saw him in Vegas once upon a time, and he opens with, "So how come you never see a Jew on top of a building?" And he's like, it goes on to, I'm paraphrasing, he goes on to say, you know, every hard hat you see on a construction site in New York, the name ends with a vowel. Luigi, Antoni, you know, this and that and the other. He says, I'll tell you why you don't see Jews on top of buildings. It's too damn cold. There's a trailer downstairs with all the calculators and a coffee machine. That's why just
very good.
Simple observation, but like,
So
yeah,
fun.
you don't meet anybody called Jaime Rabinowitz, you know, 36 stories up, schlepping steel.
I had a similar sort of thing. I said, you never see Jewish rodeo stars, right?
Yeah, absolutely
Right?
right.
You never hear things like Morris Greenberg out of Shoot 8, right?
Right. Well, that's my husband is Jewish, and he's 6'2.5", and his friend, they go to, you know, Rosh Hashanah and whatever, they go to the temple every year, and he introduces him and he says, born in Germany, blah, 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 tallest guy I know. One of these little guys said to him once, he says, God, he says, welcome to the tribe. We need tall guys like you because Israel's never won a basketball medal in the Olympics.
It's true. I was the shortest kid in my class practically, and very few. Although there have been some good Jewish baseball players and boxers.
Yeah. But, mostly
Max,
indoor sports, right?
Max Baer,
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
who was
Beverly
Hillbillies.
Hillbillies. Yeah.
His father was a great boxer.
Oh, that's right. I seem to remember
That's
that.
right.
I think he wore a Jewish star on his trunks.
Oh, really? Mogen David? Interesting. Very well.
Max Baer is still alive, I think, isn't he?
Yep.
Check
I
it out.
believe so.
He's.
I'm not
I think
sure.
I read recently he's the oldest movie actor alive.
Oh,
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
wow. I love the Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, yeah.
It just
Me
took
too.
took the piss out of what it became, what it would surely become.
Yeah.
It's like having the foresight 20 years ago to have done something, you know, taking the Mickey out of what is now Kardashian, right?
Right. That's funny.
I love the way they call them Real Housewives as well. Real?
Yeah.
Really?
Anything but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is wild. So of all of your, obviously you would probably say Jerry, but do you have a soft spot in your heart, apart from Jerry, for any other sort of iconic comedian like a Jackie Mason or a George Carlin?
Yeah. Jackie Mason was the funniest guy alive. You know, he was unbelievable. There's so many that have I've learned from because they become your mentors without them knowing it.
Right.
Milton Berle,
Rickles,
unbelievable. George Carlin, early Woody Allen when he did stand up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a great story. Milton Berle. I'm a nervous performer and I have stage fright sometimes. And 1991, I was in Montreal and they were honoring Milton Berle and I was supposed to go on. And before I went on, I went into Milton Berle's dressing room. I said, can I say hello to you? My name is Mark Schiff. I said, I'm a comedian. He says, how are you? I got honest. I said, I'm nervous about going on. I'm really, he looks at me and he goes, if you weren't good, you wouldn't be here. And then he said, I'm going to come watch you. And that made me more nervous now.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So I do my show. I come off and he's standing there and he goes, I told you were good. Beautiful, right? Listen to this. 10 years later, I go to the Hillcrest Country Club to do a show and he's there having lunch. I haven't seen him or spoke to him 10 years. Just that one night I saw him. I go over and I go, Mr. Berle, I just want to say hello to you. I met you a long time ago. My name is Mark Schiff. And he looks at me and goes, you're that nervous kid from Montreal, aren't you?
Oh, my God.
Can you imagine that 10 years later, one event with him? And he never forgot it.
How sweet.
But that must have made you feel great that he remembered you.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sure.
Alan King was one of my heroes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So many that I owe to.
There's a very special brand about Jewish comedy, though, isn't it? I love it. I'm not Jewish, but my God, I love it.
In the early 80s.
Deprecating, suffering kind of humor.
Yeah, you know, we run. It's absolutely true. In the 70s, the 60s and 70s, 85% of the stand-up comedians in the United States were Jewish.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, and listen to this. Before, in silent movies, there were no Jewish stars. It was Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd. No Jews. As soon as you got a microphone and they could start talking, that's when they got funny.
Radio.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that is wild. Mind you, all of the Jewish people were running Hollywood. They were running the studios.
Yeah, Samuel Golden, Metro Goldwyn Mayer.
MGM.
Yeah, all those guys. I don't think they turned out to be the kindest people, but
No.
that's true. They did. There was there's
You got
a
to
book,
break egg. You got to break eggs to make an omelet, right?
there's a book about Jewish mobsters, and very good book. And this one guy, he was a hitman, but if he had to go on Saturday on the Shabbos, he wouldn't drive there. He would walk there because he didn't want to break the Sabbath by driving there. But he was
Trying
trying
to kill somebody.
It's unbelievable stories. It's a great,
Lovely.
great
Well,
book.
Bugsy Siegel. There would be no Vegas without Bugsy Siegel, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So,
Incredible.
yeah.
Incredible. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for spending time with us today.
Yes.
Tell
lovely.
folks where it's scrolling across the bottom, markschiff.com, but tell folks a little bit about some of the guests they can listen to on your podcast. You don't know Schiff.
By the way, my markshift.com was just fixed by Simon Mills.
Yes, he's great.
He just finished it today. He is so great. So my podcast, You Don't Know Schiff, and it took us 2 months to come up with that name. We went through thousands of names, but it seemed like a winner.
You haven't been watching Hannity then.
So we've had Susie Essman on from Curb Your Enthusiasm. We got
Yes.
Paul Reiser. We got George Wallace coming up. We're going to be taping Seinfeld soon. We have a musician on this week named Steve Forbett. And Steve has 20 studio albums out. He's a folk singer. I love the guy. And it's Bobby Slayton is on there. And it's just great. We have so many funny people. And we really and it's a friendly podcast. You Don't Know Schiff. There's no politics. We're just it's easygoing like you guys are.
Great.
It's about making people feel good and just having a good time.
Excellent. And of course, your book will be coming in November. And once you have more details, please do let us know. Maybe you want to come back on and do a little reading, some excellent.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. I would love to
have you.
Yes,
Absolutely.
okay. It's a date.
And I've watched you guys, and you guys are terrific too. What a team, you know. It's just great.
My husband always likes to say that I forgot to mention before we got married that you buy one, you get one half off.
You know, I asked your daughter the other day if she was happy working with her mom, and she said she loved you.
Yes.
Oh, good.
I'll do anything for extra pocket money.
There you go.
Well, this has been a joy. Thank you so much,
you.
kids. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I will post it and share it, and please do feel free to share, and I will send you the links also and send them to Simon, and maybe we'll finish up on markshift.com. You never know.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
All right,
Bye-bye,
kids.
Mark. God bless.
Thanks for tuning in. See you soon. Bye-bye.